Going live! Alright, here we are on Quintessential Comics Book Club, February 2015. We are discussing Infinite Kung Fu for our graphic novel by Kagan Mcleod and Spider-Gwen by Latour, Rodriguez, and Renzi. I'm Alice Quinn, your host today, and with me I got Sean Ward.
Hello!
Say holler. Yeah.
What's up? I love these comics. I can't wait for this.
And we've also got Andrew Ace.
Hey, guys.
Cool. So last time we did this, we talked about the graphic novel first. And even though we're really excited to get into Spider-Gwen, we should continue that. I think we should talk about the graphic novel first. What did you guys think about Infinite Kung Fu?
Andrew,
I really dug it. Sorry. Sean, go first.
Okay, I will. What I like about it is that, I'm going to give you a little bit of context here. When I first started taking an interest in comics and trying to get to know the lay of the land, I would go to like my local shops and try to get a sense of like who the local indie guys who are doing their own thing. And Kagan Mcleod was doing the single issue series of Infinite Kung Fu at the time. So I used to buy those up as many as I could find, trying to like get inspiration from him and stuff. So I have a very personal attachment to him on that level. So watching it come along all the years that it came along, when it finally came out with this giant like Bible thick sized book, I was really excited. What I love about it is the story mixes so many different elements of kind of all of our pop culture favorite things. It does so really eloquently and beautifully. It did it before it was kind of like trendy too, because now it's remix culture and the internet and whatnot. That's pretty common. But at the time that he was doing this, that was still like it wasn't mainstream yet. So I love it for that. I love it for being a trailblazer and just the art, like Kagan's pacing, his action. It's masterful.
Awesome.
Wow, that's very well said. I agree with a lot of what you're saying. I didn't know the single issues. I did like in the intro they talked, the guy sort of doing the intro of the book talked about Kagan coming to Suspect Video, because round about sort of the same time, I remember my buddy and I would always go by Suspect and rent some kung fu movies and some anime and whatnot, and I could really empathize with that. And then reading it today, really enjoying, wasn't quite say cliches of characters, but he has like archetypal characters that resonate through almost all kung fu movies, and in a way, sort of that high action adventure style of storytelling. And I found it a blast looking at their different kung fu styles, and I don't know, it was a great read for me.
What else was fun for me is that me and Kagan were, around the same age, and so for me to look in this, I can almost pick out like so many of his inspirations from those classic kung fu movies to the Wu-Tang Clan records. Like I was there for a lot of the pop cultural touchstones that went into his inspiration for this book. So really fun to pick those out as well.
Alice, what did you think?
I really dug it. I thought it was really cool. I mean, a lot of people who I talked to when I started doing this book club, they were like, oh man, it's so thick, it's so big. But you really just got to dedicate yourself to it. It is long, but it's worth it. I don't feel like there's anything in there he could have cut. There was a lot of like backstory and back and forth, and like I really dug it. And like the whole thing with like the Immortals and all of their students, and then like their students just totally messing with them and deciding to, forget everything their teachers have taught them and chase after these poison kung fu styles that are like literally poisoning their brains. Like I love that. And Kagan's art style is so fluid. His inks are so vivid and real. Like it feels like those moves are jumping off the page. Like I flip the page and like I feel like I'm gonna get wrapped up in this kung fu battle because it's just so vivid. I love it. And yeah, it also like I see what Sean's saying about the kung fu influences and ties, because I do watch a lot of kung fu movies as well, and there's so many similarities. but also the way he takes it and takes it to a different level and involves these other characters. Like, I really liked Lee Kung's journey, but also when they meet up with Moog Jugular, who's like fast-talking, sly, you know, like hip guy who is in this like jive town. Like, that was really cool, and what they did with that character was really neat too. But I also like how in the end they brought it back to Lee Kung, and it was like, listen, it's all up to you. You have to save the world.
You can almost see that Moog Jugular like predicted Afro Samurai, right?
Yeah.
And sort of the way the Afro Samurai's got that like that teddy bear head character and whatnot. Like, there's so much of that kind of like seemingly non sequitur stuff that's going on in here. Like, I'm flipping through it and I'm getting and reading it in the first place and seeing like at one part there's an army of robots, another part there's this Moog Jugular guy, and then you see where he does the flashbacks and whatnot. I think part of the success of why it's so cool is that like part of the reason why the Wu-Tang Clan captured people's imaginations to the degree that it did was that it took that old, like the philosophy and the stories from those old kung fu movies, like that kung fu mythology, and it wasn't just about recycling the tropes, it was about applying the philosophy in different contexts. And I think that's what Kagan really got right with this book, and I think that's why people have loved it so much. Coming back to the point about the action, you could almost make a case, almost, because I would never wish this guy to not get his money, but you could almost make a case that it's almost too bad that he's so successful as an illustrator, because if he wasn't so successful at that, he might have then, you know, gone off and made like superhero comics, and we would have, you know, who knows what we would have seen if he was applying his style to, you know, that kind of action.
Well, actually, it's interesting that you say, because him and Chip Zdarsky are producing a new comic called Captura. I'm totally pronouncing it wrong. It's coming out next month, or April. I kind of wanted to include it in our book club readings, but I've already done Kagan Mcleod, and I'm doing Chip Zdarsky next month with Howard the Duck. So look out for that. It's actually pretty cool because, like, Infinite Kung Fu took Kagan, like, maybe a decade. Don't quote me on that, I'm not 100% sure, but he released the issues over a series of years while he was working on like illustration jobs for the National Post and other stuff, so it really took him a really long time to complete, and now that it's out there, I'm really interested to see what he's doing next. I definitely will be reading that new Captara. Please don't hate my pronunciation. And seeing what else comes out of it, because, you know, now that that's done, it's opened up the world of possibilities to him as like a comics illustrator. So let's see, you know.
Kagan is far too humble a guy to come right out and say it, but like I was talking to him one time because you know, I see him around the way at hip hop events and stuff, and I was asking him basically, you know, why we don't see him do more comics since Infinite Kung Fu, and without coming right out and saying it, the answer that I got from him, what I kind of sussed out from what he was telling me, was just that like he's so successful with illustration, he hasn't got time to do comics. So to tell me that he's getting into a new comics project, that's exciting news.
That is great news. I was at a basketball game with an artist who used to be huge in comics. He was telling me something the same, that the money that advertising or other illustrating gigs give you, sadly, just so often outweighs, unfortunately, making comic books where you know, the pay isn't quite the same. As much as we love it, and we wish those creators were you know, producing comic books all the time.
So what are the chances that we're going to see this thing get adapted to like an AMC or an HBO TV show? Anybody heard any news about that?
I haven't heard any news. I'd say the chances at this point are pretty slim. But who knows what the future will bring us. I mean, right now, I don't know if you guys heard, but Sex Criminals is going to be adapted into a television series.
Really?
That's like fresh off the press, hot news.
Well, let's not get distracted into a talk about that.
But yeah, that'd be cool. I would really love to see it, but it would have to be like classic Kung Fu, just like a little low budget, you know, a little wire fu in there. I would totally go for an adaptation.
Oh, you could do it. You could do it with that total like 70s kung fu movie look with the grainy film. If you wanted to really push it, you could do it with like the bad dubbing where the lips don't match with what's being said. You know what I mean? You could totally get that kind of authentic with it. There's a million and one things you could do with it. But speaking about the comics itself, whoever's given that complaint about it being too long, well, like, okay, well, that's just a reader being lazy, or maybe it's just not for them. But it's like, there's stuff out there that's really long and that's epic in scope, and so this is just one of those things that's epic in scope. So that's like saying Lord of the Rings is too long or War and Peace is too long. It's how long it needs to be, and this needs to be that long.
No, Sean, I definitely agree with you. I mean, 500 pages. It's almost 500 pages. I just thought I was getting more sort of bang for my buck. Like, I can't stand the graphic novel collections that are tiny little wisps of books on the shelf. My only critique really when I was reading it, and it applied more to his earlier work, and you can definitely see a progression in his art, but also in his lettering. I found it was a little text dense to start with. It slowed down just sort of a bit of the feel of the action, the pacing, because his art is incredibly kinetic, and then the last, I would say, third almost becomes this just epic battle, and you look at how he's doing his paneling and his design layout. There was one page where there's sort of one character fighting, and a little panel on the top left, another on the bottom right, and then in between are just all the steps of a temple with all these bodies sort of strewn around from all the different fights. And I was just like, wow, that is really nicely done. And so, I mean, it's a great work. I would recommend anyone reading it. But if when you pick it up, maybe sort of you're looking at that size of it and you're feeling that it's a little text heavy, keep going. The action's just getting started would be my advice.
Yeah, if you were going to like twist my arm and make me offer a criticism, the only thing I could really come up with is the fact that because it took him over 10 years to do it, it would be one thing if it took him 10 years to write a novel, because he's just typing, right? But the fact that it's a visual medium the way it is, you can sort of tell that there's a bit of a different art style from the very beginning to the very end, just because a cartoonist is going to evolve over that time. Yeah. And also, in addition, you can sort of tell that the chunk of it that was originally issued in single issues versus the rest of it that is just all one big go. But I mean, those aren't really complaints. That's just just one observation that I noticed.
One thing that I do want to point out was like my favorite part of the book is sort of like in between when they're on their journey, they meet up with Moog, and the village has been decimated, and they're on the road, and they're sharing stories. And Moog and Lee Kung are like in the corners, and then in the smoke of the bonfire is the panels that are the backstory. And like, I just love that visual. I thought it was so creative, and it really went well. And like, it transitioned right back into what them and at the bonfire at the end, and it was just like such a great spread. That really blew my mind. And so there's a couple things that stick out like that, but it's definitely a really good read. But it is like, for me, I like reading on the go, and so something like this is super heavy and really tough. But once I got into it, it was like, I don't care if this is weighing down my backpack. I'm gonna bring this with me. I'm in the middle of this amazing kung fu battle. I can't wait to see how Lee Kung overcomes the poison kung fu of the evil students. So yeah, that was pretty cool. And criticism, the only thing I have to say is I did have to keep referring back to the first page that had all the character names of the immortals and their students, because like even though they're drawn differently, because there's a ton of characters, they did sort of like get lost. And also like, there was only one chick. And it wasn't even like, there was like one chick who was an immortal, and of course she had a chick student, and they ended up being evil, or the student ended up being evil. So like, not a lot of great females, but they did make up for it with Moog's buddy, who has this really cool out-of-body experience, and ends up helping Lee Kung on his journey. So that was neat. But yeah, I'd still recommend it. Seriously good.
I was actually glad that I picked it up. I mean, the Kobo version, which I think is what's really neat about comics these days, is that you can put a bunch onto an iPad or a Kobo and basically be carrying 50 graphic novels and not be weighing down your backpack, Alice. Don't want to have back issues, because you're trying to read so many comic books. The only thing, and it's not a criticism, I had a chance to meet Kagan at a fundraiser a little while ago. And he did a beautiful piece of art for my wife. So I know how amazing his color work is. And obviously this was done inks and black and white, and so it's not quite so simple just to feed color into it. But halfway through, I kind of wondered if it had been done, watercolored, how amazing it would have been to see, that much of Kagan's, beautiful artwork. Just, he does such great coloring.
Yeah. Maybe one day we'll see a color edition.
Yeah, they did it for Bone. I don't think it would be completely impossible. But anyway. So, Alice, any final thoughts?
I think that pretty much sums it up. I mean, I could repeat myself, but that's kind of pointless. I'm saying let's move on. Let's talk about Spider-Gwen, unless you guys have anything else to add.
I'm good. It's a great read.
Thumbs up from me.
Oh, yeah. Well, since you started us off last time, Sean, what were your thoughts on Spider-Gwen #1?
Oh, my God. I did a review of this on my YouTube channel, and I don't usually do, current stuff as far as, comic book releases. I don't. That's not my beat. But I had to drop something for this one just because of how it's such a hugely anticipated, perhaps the most anticipated comic book release in years. And so the stakes were high, and I think they knocked it out of the park. Just for curiosity, actually, I've been reading all kinds of reviews just to see what other people thought about it. And in some corners of the internet, it seems like it's a split decision. In other corners, it seems like people really, really loved it. I've even seen a couple of people that really were, hated it. But I loved it. I thought that there was a few reasons why I loved it. First, Spider-Man's my guy, right? Spider-Man's my favorite. So it's brilliant as a reinterpretation of the Spider-Man mythology. And you see what they're pointing at here seems to be an idea for a much bigger idea, which is a different take on the whole Marvel Universe. And but even beyond that, take away the brand recognition of the Spider-Man connection. I just think that the art style is brilliant because Rodriguez's action is so different, so new. It's almost like him and Kagan's work. You can almost see where they're cut from a bit of the same cloth, and both so different from what else is going on in superhero comics. So for this to be what's now going on in mainstream superhero comics in a book this high profile, I'm really excited. And for the story, I love the character stuff. I love how everything is updated, modernized. I love how they don't seem to be too beholden to what's come before in the Spider-Man story. They're loose, they're fun. It's just, it's fun in a way that a lot of superhero stuff doesn't get a chance to be these days, mired as it is in continuity and crossover events and stuff.
Though, I mean, funnily enough, her character born out of a crazy crossover continuity kind of mashup. I mean, I was a huge fan of Spider-Man 2099 when he came out, and for me, there's no one essential Spider-Man as there is kind of that idea of a young character who's both being responsible but also, taking on life's challenges and maybe not always making, the right decision. I've liked her character from the beginning. I really dug the lead-in crossover storyline stuff, but I mean that's because when you have a swinging spider pig, it's gonna bring a smile to my face anyway. And she even makes mention that in the first issue, which of course, she's like, everybody loves him. I just need him on my team. And my only thing is, funnily enough, this isn't when I was reading this wasn't my style of art. Subjectively, I found maybe the coloring was a bit flat for me, but here's the thing. The pacing of the story, the writing, the character, the line work, the energy in the book was such that whether or not you're like, oh, this is, I'm a Jim Lee type artist, or I love Eduardo Risso and that's kind of what I'm into, I think you'll find yourself drawn into the story and as Sean was saying, kind of exposing yourself to new styles of art, a la, Kagan's, kinetic martial art kind of brushwork.
One thing I want to throw out there is that, Gwen Stacy, this version of Gwen Stacy, Spider-Gwen, has emerged out of that Spider-Verse mega event. But if you go back to actually the first appearance, which was that Edge of Spider-Verse #2, I was not ready for what I got in that comic book. Because I'm a guy, Spider-Man is the one comics indulgence that I have that I keep up with everything and buy all the new issues, right? And that's my outlet for my inner kid, right? Is keeping up with all my Spider-Man comics. So I was buying all of this Amazing Spider-Man and then all the Spider-Verse stuff. When issue #2 of Edge of Spider-Verse came out, I was like, okay, okay, great. I go to read it, and what it ended up being was this great story about a new character, self-contained in the one issue, save for the very, very last panel where she, goes off with the rest of them. But the story that's in that issue, I've said it many, many times, that is one of the best single-issue self-contained comic stories ever. I'm putting it down like that because it both on the level, like I said, of reinventing the Spider-Man story, but also just being a brilliant story on its own merits. So I read a review that said that issue of Edge of Spider-Verse, out of fairness, should have been Spider-Gwen #1, and I kind of agree with that sentiment because it was everything I love about years of Spider-Man story packed into 22 pages and redone in a whole new way. I'm speechless at it. I love it.
Well, that's sort of why I wanted to do Spider-Gwen on this program, because the reason, before, in the previous edition of the Quintessential Comics Book Club, we did 2 graphic novels along the same topic. But over the last year in comics, I've really come to love She-Hulk, which was canceled because not enough people bought the issue. I'm not going to go into She-Hulk again. I did last episode. But what's really cool about this issue is Spider-Gwen wasn't supposed to be anything. It was just going to be a one-off. The Edge of Spider-Verse had a lot of these self-contained small stories about other universes that had other versions of Spider-Man. So this was one of them. And it was just supposed to be a one-off. But the comics community loved it and ate it up. And now it's in its 4th printing and sold out all over the place. And the original print of Spider-Verse #2 is like $50 on eBay right now, and that's a comic that came out like 4 months ago, not that long ago, and it's just this one hit a chord, and because people loved it, and because they voted with their money, Marvel gave this series a chance, and that's amazing because because of the art style and because female lead and because it's an ulterior Spider-Man, it can be hard, because a lot of people they want Peter Parker, they want what they know, right? And so for Marvel to give this a chance because people loved it so much is amazing. Personally, when reading the comic, I was kind of a little disappointed because that issue of Spider-Verse #2 set the bar so high. Because I agree with Sean, that's one of the best single issues I've ever read in my entire life because it was so self-contained, so multi-layered. You got such a sense of the characters, what was going on, and it didn't need a to be continued. It didn't need any of that. And the fact that it got it is just like icing. So this issue is more of a setup for a larger series, and you get a lot of that in her relationship with her dad, her relationship with the band, and how she's trying to do more stuff as Spider-Woman and how to be a better Spider-Woman and get better publicity because this universe hates their Spider Totem. They view her as a menace, like the good old Spider-Man days. So it does a lot of setup, but there's not a ton of completion in it. A lot of it's just set up. She has a run-in with the Vulture, but it doesn't end, It's a to be continued. Now it's just sort of but I want more. I don't want to wait for next month, Oh
yeah, this is going to be, part 1 of a 5-part story that's going to take up the first 5 issues. Part of the reason why this is so noteworthy and why it's so exciting to talk about it for me is beyond just whether or not the comic book itself is any good, is the greater phenomenon of it and what it means to the culture. And there's a dichotomy for me that exists where it is, at the same time, both everything that I've been saying I wish superhero comics would do, while also making me afraid of what they're going to do with it. Because on the level of just capital A art, yeah, it would be great if that one story that is, dare I say, perfect, just stood alone and was allowed to be brilliant forever. But of course, there's business concerns involved, right? So they're going to greenlight an ongoing series, and how awesome is it that we got those creators back on board? So if you take that as a given, I can't really be disappointed that it ends on a to be continued note because now they're going to do it like a standard superhero comic book. How it answers what I've wanted to see from comic books from a long time was, I've been saying for many, many years that the whole continuity thing, we know that it scares away new readers and it doesn't bring new people in. Why don't they just do whatever story they feel like doing with no respect at all for continuity, what came before? And that seems to be exactly what they're doing. You can have the Spider-Gwen book and have it be whatever the creators want it to be. It doesn't matter what they're doing in the Amazing Spider-Man or whatever. It doesn't have to tie into that. It's not it's not shackled to decades of continuity. But at the same time, it signals something that kind of has my spidey senses tingling. In that I was looking at an interview with one of the higher ups at Marvel, and the interviewer was asking him, "Hey, why do you think Spider-Gwen was such an immediate hit? What struck a chord with people?" And he's like, "Well, I don't know. Maybe it was the costume. Maybe it was the proximity to the Spider-Verse event. And the fact that that comic book was just so good a story was not even an idea that he came up with for why it was so successful." So, of course, chances are that we're going to have a limited amount of time to enjoy it for it being just this brilliant, wonderful, artful thing that it is before, the bean counters start having plans for it, spin-offs, mega events. Oh, make it be this because we want it to be something for a movie years down the road and stuff like that. But then if the movie comes out and the movie's brilliant, all is forgiven. But you get what I'm saying there with the yin and the yang of why a success this big and immediate
the thing you say
awesome,
about it being its own thing, it's like, yeah, it's its own thing now, but how long until the bean counters are like, we need crossovers to sell more comics? Come on, guys, let's do it. And that's sort of what's cool about Gwen in her way, is that she's part of an alternative Spider-Verse. The Spider-Verse event was pretty cool, but the thing they really introduced is that there's all these different universes of Spider-Man, and they put them all together for this event, which is cool. So I'd like Gwen to stay in her universe, but I doubt she will.
I really hope, though, that we just get a little while of letting the comics be their own thing for at least a satisfying chunk of time before they just yank her right back into another crossover mega event.
Secret Wars. I'm just gonna throw that out. I mean, Marvel's pretty much already said that they plan on taking all their universes and mashing them up. And I mean, people are speculating Miles Morales being Spider-Man, Ultimate Spider-Man in regular Marvel universe, and what that will mean. I think it's pretty clear that. I wonder, can we count the number of months and issues of Spider-Gwen? Will it be 5 or 6, aka a perfect graphic novel, and then they're going to have Wars and bring her into I don't know, right? I mean, I think Sean touched on a really interesting point when he brought up when comic books are made as art versus when their direction and dictation to a certain level is done for money. And I mean, if you're a publishing company, you're doing it for money. And I mean, I think we've seen time and again creators, just off the top of my head, like Alan Moore, being upset that for him, a perfectly self-contained story, Watchmen, would then years later, they try to, add more and essentially make more money off that one tale. At the same time, I mean, I'm just reading before Watchmen right now and thinking, as a reader, I kind of like that there is more out there for me to enjoy. And as long as I think the quality is good, then readers aren't typically upset. It's when you take a great title and then you kind of, over 12 months, put on a C-list creator team, no offense, and then, then you're suddenly surprised it's not selling as many issues, so you need to do crossover events with Wolverine and Ghost Rider. Maybe this is the 90s. But, yeah, I really liked it, though. And I mean, I'm excited for the character, just because it is that sort of originality that Marvel, is known for.
Yeah, we're really looking forward to more Spider-Gwen. I think it's one of those things that is going to be a really great graphic novel. I feel like as tight and as interesting as that first issue of Edge of Spider-Verse is, that's how the first graphic novel is going to read. And that's how they're putting it together. So yeah, I doubt she'll stay in her own universe for long, but I mean, that doesn't necessarily have to be a bad thing. One of my favorite things about comics is that anything is possible. Any fan fiction you've ever dreamed of where the Ghostbusters meet with Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, that happens in comics. And that's like one of the cool things about comics, is that, the possibilities are endless. As long as we can figure it out, we can get these characters together and we can make a cool comic. That's one of the reasons I picked this comic, because it's like, because people loved it so much in that single issue, because people voted with their dollar, it's becoming this ongoing series. So, you know, buy comics if you like them, and then they'll make more of them.
Has anyone heard the Mary
Jane? Go ahead, Andrew.
Sorry. Has anyone heard in the last page, in what will be the letters page, the writer makes mention that there's now an actual Mary Jane song out there that.
I listened to it. Yeah, it's on YouTube.
Oh yeah, I was meaning to try and check it out. Is it good? I mean, I imagine it is. It's probably pretty fun, right?
It's fun. Yeah, I mean, it's not like the best thing ever. You know, it's not gonna blow your mind and make you pick a new favorite band. But like, it's fun that some band actually took that on and made it a real song. And now I'm actually quite jealous because there's a store in North Carolina that's got the creators of the book. They're coming this weekend. During the day, it's a signing at the comic book store, and they're going to have this. They're going to have an exclusive variant cover, but they're also going to have a white vinyl 7-inch record of the song. There's going to be band T-shirts of the Mary Janes, like with that scratchy logo on it and stuff. And then a concert at night, that band, because that actually is a band, just sort of taking on the persona of the cartoon band for one song. So they're going to do a whole concert. I'm sure they're going to save that song for their big finale. But that sounds like it's going to be an awesome party, actually.
When's this happening? And I'm hearing road trip, because that sounds like something pretty fun to attend.
It's in North Carolina on Saturday night. So, yeah, somebody call Uber. Let's go.
Pack your bags. We're all going right now. But yeah, that's what I love about comics like these. Is like, not only do they intersect different parts of the Marvel U, but they cross over from comics reality to our in real life reality, where people can get involved, and they do change comics like that, and it's awesome. That's part of why I like reading the last page and reading like the letters pages and seeing how the fans' reaction changes the comics themselves, and having this band just make up a song out of that one lyric they had in the issue is amazing. I can't wait to see what happens next because of what.
Also touch for a moment on the fact that this comic book exists and the success it is. I think it says a lot too about the corporate culture at Marvel, and a lot of the fears that people had about what was going to happen to the company when Disney bought them have now been proven by this. I think this was the death knell of those naysayers, because the fact that as a company they're so nimble and so loose, and just there's a spirit of play that's at work there, that they can see something take off and run with it and kind of keep what's special about it, at least for now, right? But also, if you want to make the comparison, it's like DC had a runaway surprise hit when they made up DC didn't, but there was a character called Harley Quinn, right? That was created for the Batman animated show. It took them, what, 15, maybe 20 years to fully bring her into the comics to figure out to do that. And when they did, they like took all of her clothing away, completely changed what we loved about the character on top of that, right? Meanwhile, then here's Spider-Gwen, completely covered, completely clothed, empowered. The first issue's coming out not even 6 months after this thing that was supposed to be just a throwaway gag, right? And so I think that how good that Spider-Verse issue was, plus how big people were looking forward to the Spider-Gwen, and how, I mean, it was the #1 trending topic on Twitter yesterday, right? Nobody reads comics anymore, they say, right? But Spider-Gwen was the #1 trending topic. And I think that all of that stuff, this Spider-Gwen phenomenon, brilliantly illustrates, beyond the movies and all that kind of stuff, a real marked difference in the corporate culture between how Marvel's choosing to operate right now and how DC's choosing to operate right now.
Yeah, and like there's a bunch of comics that'll utilize the internet and make it work. One of my favorite examples is the Young Avengers series. You know how every first page of a comic gets like last on, previously. So for Young Avengers, they have a Tumblr page. Like it looks like a Tumblr page from the internet. It's got different characters, and it's like, oh my god, you would not believe what happened last year. And it's literally talking to people on their level. It's talking, you know, and that's the creators of that comic. Gillian, I can't remember at the moment because brain fart. But they know how to talk to the people, and Marvel's giving them the license to get through to them. And so, you know, I hope we continue to see that not just on Spider-Gwen, but on other stuff in the Marvel U. And hopefully, eventually, DC will catch on. We'll see about that. I have my doubts.
The pendulum always swings on this stuff, and there will come a time when DC is the one who's creative and trying new things and having a lot of fun with the characters, and readers are having a lot of fun with what they're doing with it. And Marvel will be the one that's like tripping over the shoelaces and can't figure out an angle. It always swings both ways. It'll change eventually.
Yeah.
What were you saying, Andrew?
Oh, I think I sneezed Clone Saga, and I realized that Sean, like Spider-Man's a huge character for you. I'm the same way about Captain America, so I don't mean to be thrown down or nothing. But when I was a younger reader, the Clone Saga kind of drove me away from Marvel.
Spider-Man has been my guy my whole life. I collected every issue of the Amazing Spider-Man from like middle school age on, and it was around that like Clone Saga, parents coming back sort of time that I just went, F this. And just really got out of comics almost completely, and I was away from superhero comics for a really long time. And then what brought me back was that sort of 1-2 punch of the Marvel Cinematic Universe getting hot, and then Avengers versus X-Men happened in the big crossover a few years ago. People love it or hate it, but whether it's good or not, it's what sucked me back in, and now I'm 12 years old all over again loving this stuff.
Right on.
And that's comics for you, and I'm looking forward to next month. Do you guys have anything else to say specifically about Spider-Gwen or Infinite Kung Fu?
I think I've gushed pretty sufficiently.
Yeah.
I'll sum up my feelings on both of those works and say, fun. More just the stuff's supposed to be fun. Let it be fun. Let's have fun with it.
And on fun, we're gonna have fun in our next episode with the Hip Hop Family Tree. Gonna be awesome. And by gonna be, I mean I'm gonna read it, and I already know it's awesome. Volume 2 is out, but we're gonna read Volume 1 so we can all start off on the same page. It's epic. Like, it looks like an old 70s comic, and it's the history of hip hop in a comic book. I am so excited, guys. And we're gonna read Howard the Duck #1 out next month from Marvel. So it's gonna be awesome. I don't know whether we're going to do Tuesday nights or Thursday nights. Judging from the viewers, I'm probably going to go back to Tuesday nights. It seems like people have more time to watch. But I would love your thoughts in the comments or on the Facebook page, or tweet at me. And if you have any ideas for which issue we should read in April, I would super appreciate it, because I want to pick a first issue to read in April, but I can't do Capitara, which I've now pronounced 3 different ways. Do you guys have any ideas for issues in April?
Oh my God! Well, when's Secret Wars coming out?
I have to admit that I haven't been keeping up with my previews as often. I'm still trying to catch up with hordes of graphic novels bought over Christmas. But yeah, Alice, I had a lot of fun, and Sean had a lot of fun chatting with both you guys tonight. And it was, really cool to be reading Infinite Kung Fu. It was something that I'd known I'd wanted to read for a while. So this show gave me the impetus to buckle down and force myself to read comic books. Oh, it's a tough life.
I know, right? But this is why I got the book club going too. So, stuff you've always had, what you wanted to read, and you haven't had, like, you haven't committed yourself to. So if you guys have suggestions, either you two or viewers, I'm definitely open to suggestions. I will put up what we decide as the April comic on the Facebook page and the Twitter, because you have to order comics 2 months in advance in order for your shop to get it. So I'm probably going to do that this week-ish. So stay tuned for that for details. Until then, thanks so much for joining in. I appreciate your viewage and your feedback. Stay tuned to Facebook and Twitter for details of upcoming episodes. I don't have a website for this particular show, but all the stuff will be there. And if you guys want to give a quick shout out and plug, go ahead. Sean.
Okay, The Sean Ward Show on YouTube. I do superhero videos every week. It's new every Friday. Subscribe, just like 60,000 people have, and 3 million people a month watching our stuff. You're going to love it. You're going to laugh till it hurts. The Sean Ward Show Facebook, and then just, if you put my name into Google, you get all the social links. I'm Sean Ward on Twitter, Instagram, and all that stuff.
Ace.
Yeah, you'll find me on YouTube, Instagram, Twitter, all the same handle, whatnot, at UYS999, strange last name. Won't even try to explain my website, but you'll find links, you'll find the comic books that I put out, and yeah, I'd be interested to hear back about the show, what other people have thought about Infinite Kung Fu, so, find me on Twitter and share your thoughts.
Cool, thanks for joining us. We'll see you next month on Quintessential Comics.